Hello everyone, welcome back to a new video on my channel. So I have actually finished reading Women Who Run with the Wolves. For those of you that have seen previous videos that I've made this summer, I basically started to read this book a month and a half ago or 2 months ago at this point. And I have been for every single chapter, knowing that each chapter is kind of individual chapters, like there's no following through the book. You can just read chapters in any order that you want. I have been working with tarot and really trying to learn something and really connect to the wild woman archetype. So I had promised in the past to make a video or several videos about the different spreads that I've been doing in connection with this book. But to be very honest, it's probably going to take too much of my time. So I've decided to do, now that I finished the book, one video that encompasses all of the spreads that I've been doing, all of the lessons that I've learned, and all of the decks that I've been working in connection with this book, the main one being the Tiger Tarot. My hope is really to see what I have learned through my work with this book, where I started and where I am at the end of this journey. So just a reminder, this book is, like I said, Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, and it's a book that in each chapter you have a myth or a story and an analysis of what is the lesson to learn, what is the morale of this myth and story in relation with, getting in touch with the wild woman archetype. So basically the first tale, because the first one is really to me an introduction. It's a very nice image of kind of the work that this book is going to make you do, which is kind of this resurrection of the wild woman with the story of La Loba, which is this old woman that collects bones and bring them back to life. So that's what we're going to do in this book. But the first proper chapter where you start to really get into it is the tale of Bluebeard. And then all the different chapters you see there is kind of the analysis of the tale. And so we will start with this one. For the Bluebeard tale, I realized when preparing this video that I have given cards that are really related to the tale. So I'm going to try to translate them into questions that make sense outside of knowing the tale of Bluebeard. But basically, this is a tale about having an inner predator in your psyche or an external predator next to you, and making sure to not fall into its claws, in a sense. And so the first card here is to have the curiosity to question your position, to note that you to not stay put in your mindset and to see what stands behind a door that you might not have access to right now, but that might hold what you need to know to improve your situation. So this is the first key of learning of this tale. The second key, it has to do with instinct and where you have to ask yourself, what is not in my current position as it appears? What is something that I might be lying myself about? What might be kind of something that I'm, enduring but not being necessarily thriving, that I'm kind of forcing myself to go through but that I don't want to. The third question is, what do I know deep in my ovarios, or deep in my belly, deep in my ovaries, that I wish I did not know? And this is, I think, one of the most important questions here, which is that sometimes we really do not want to face something that we're unhappy with, but like this whole tale is about facing it, about getting to the truth. And final card, those are all tarot cards. What of me has been killed or lays dying? So this is also in connection with the La Loba tale I just talked about, like where you might have a part of you that is dormant, where it only is at the stages of bones, and that you need to resurrect in order to improve your situation and to deal with the 3 first learning that you have done in the first 3 cards. And then since for this spread, like you could stop here, this is the main part. But I also added in the center here a card about Bluebeard, which is this predator, this dark man in your psyche or in your life that is not letting you be the person you want to be. And so for ease of not getting too many cards out, I have taken a picture at the time when I did this spread, and I'm just going to show the picture now on the screen. And I am going to tell you the main learnings that I've got from this spread. So for me, the message I got from working with this tale and with this spread is that I have lost faith. I am hiding away from the truth in a false sense of happiness. And that to what thoughts I have to be aware of which thoughts I am paying attention to, the one that are bringing expansion or the one that are bringing powerlessness and kind of diminishing me. I think this is one of my favorite chapters in the book, and at the time where I did it, I really realized, especially like this Hierophant card, I think is in this spread, because now I don't have the cards in front of me, but it really made me realize like the justice and Hierophant, that I am going through my life with like a lack of purpose, a lack of something to believe in, and that this tale was the first hint that this was really happening. From this chapter, I was like really hooked on the book, kind of treating it as my Bible. I was like, okay, this is deep work. This is really worth studying. So because this video, we're going to go through all the chapters, I'm going to leave it at that for this tale. So let's go into the, third tale, but like the second one where I have done a spread for, and this is the Vasilisa the Wise spread. And this is, as you can see, a tale all about the retrieval of intuition. And for this one, I've actually done 2 different spreads. First one that has really to do with the tale itself, and one that kind of came up in the analysis of the tale, and I think will be very easy to understand and easy to apply to many different things and not just, the subject within this tale. But so the proper Vasilisa spread here is, first of all, first card is what propels me into the woods. So, because once again, there is kind of this factor that sent you wandering into a metaphorical wood where you are like on a journey, so what propels you on a journey where you will learn and have trials and experience, where you will lose your innocence and really learn something about yourself. But there is normally a propeller, a trigger to a specific journey. So this was the first card. The second card here is where does the doll guide me? The doll representing intuition. So kind of understanding what it is that your soul, that your intuition really wants you to go for. And third is what do I need to learn from Baba Yaga? And in this tale, Baba Yaga represents the wild woman. So what do I need to learn once I meet, because this is a journey to meeting the wild woman, what do I need to learn from her? And then this fourth card I've added afterwards. So actually in the spread I'm going to show afterwards, I do not have this fourth cards, but here is what needs to burn for the lesson and intention to manifest itself. So for this one, I've used the Smoke, Ash, and Embers Tarot. And so I've got as a main message that too much time has been spent in idle contemplation, in planning, in wanting, but that I should take control and be the master of my own life and show confidence. And then the true learning from Baba Yaga is the Tower, which really in this case I think represents the idea of, you know, freeing myself from a prison that I've created for myself, to kind of fly away from this little tower I was stuck or imprisoned in. And so finally, to finish on this spread and this tale, I think it was once again very nice and showing me even more like where I'm going and what was maybe in need of change in my life and in my spiritual progression, let's say. But I think in terms of impact on myself, like the Bluebeard spread had more impact on me than the Vasilisa. But this was still, I was kind of in the phase of learning at this point. I hadn't like fully resurrected the wild woman in me, but I was on my way there, still kind of trying to understand what was happening. And so going into the second spread here that I encourage you to do, it's a very simple one. It's asking yourself the question, what's in my garden? And garden being your psyche. So kind of if you use the metaphor of your psyche as a garden, what is the state of your garden? Is it rotting? Is it blossoming? Like what's the state of it? So the first question is what plant that you have planted in your garden should be kept being cultivated. And then the second is what plant is there and should be cut off. And finally, what seed should be planted. For what is there and should be kept cultivating, we've got the Strength card. So that I've understood as facing my fears and continuing to grow my confidence. Then I need to let go of previous defeat and disappointment, kind of really start anew. And so the seed that should be planted is to take a higher perspective and maybe embark on a new quest, or really on my quest, and really figuring out what it is that I'm seeking, what is my purpose. And I think for this one, the Hierophant showed up as like the below or above card. I don't remember, but like there was still this idea from the Bluebeard spread of the Hierophant that has been killed, that now I need to like seek for my Hierophant, so my faith, my sense of purpose. So the next tale is the Manawi. Here, so hymn for the wild man, Manawi, the mate, union with the other. And for this, I'm going to show the spread again, but I have gone into details about the lessons learned and the spread I've done with this tale in a previous video. I think the one in my summer deck list, I gave an example of how I used the Tiger Tarot, which I think is now going to be the deck I'm going to show for the rest of this video. And so the Manawi spread is really detailed there in terms of what messages I got. But the spread is the following. So we first got kind of the distractions that are keeping away the sacred union with your mate. Then we again get this idea of the predator that also is kind of really actively trying to go against you having this love that you're seeking. Then we get the dog, which is this intuitive male energy, this wild man that on top of like the more civilized man also need to be seeking the wild woman. And then there's also this interesting notion that the wild woman has two sides, two personalities that both need to be understood by her mate. And so this is the name of the sister of the outer world, and then the name of the sister of the inner world, and both need to be understood. This was an interesting tale. I think I would like to revisit it because honestly, I think when I did the spread, I was really focused on kind of this idea of the two personality within women, and I didn't really treat it as a love reading. I didn't really don this spread with the idea of understanding my relationship. I was really more focused again on more like inner knowledge. And I think this also works because every single time in the book, in each chapter, she says that it can be either external factor or internal factor. So it's maybe more also about dealing with what's happening inside of you. And we all have masculine and feminine energy. So I think I really used this spread as how to reconnect with my masculine energy and kind of be in harmony between my masculine and feminine side. But then the next tale is the skeleton woman facing the life, death, life, nature of love. And this one had a huge impact on me. So let's get into it. So this is the skeleton woman spread. The first card is, what not beauty do I fear? So the idea that there's a part of you, like a shadow maybe, that you are not accepting within yourself. So what am I running away from? Where am I avoiding the not beautiful and acting with naivety? So this is kind of the idea of, again, realization. The second card is, of what use is the power of the not beautiful to me today? What should die in order to give birth? Third card is, what should live? What should I trust to come alive? So we're basically having the death and then life. What innocence should I let come forth? And yeah. And then fourth card, what should I release that would bring me relief? Fifth, what should I believe wholeheartedly? And six, what transformation will happen as a result of this dance with death? So like this tale and this chapter is really where we start the work of digging. Like before we were really like, okay, what is dead? Like really kind of in this first card, because there is a little bit of repetition, I'm not gonna lie, into the messages of the book, and it's always about realizing something about yourself and then going from this realization to bringing yourself closer to the wild woman archetype. And so now we're really going into this resurrection of the wild woman, of bringing her to life, and maybe also really kickstarting faith. And so I'll just have a couple of cards here, which were like the main cards that I've got, but I'm also going to show a picture on the screen because I got really inspired by this spread and I was really struggling to understand the messages. So I made, for each of the 6 cards, I did a 3-card pull for each. So it was like a huge spread. But so the main messages I've got were that there was a strong message of self-love, This card came a lot for me throughout the work with this book, and it's really about being kind to yourself, listening to your inner voice, and stop to flagellate yourself, to hurt yourself when it's not necessary, and kind of instead embrace softness. Then the next message is that the life cycle is part of the wild woman, part of you. Face the truth, separate what you know as true from your imagination that blow things out of proportion. Have faith and practice your personal power, and channel negative energy into positive. So these messages come from the cards I have here, but also from the picture on the screen, mainly the picture on the screen. And this is really when me realizing that I would like to fully dedicate a practice to talking to this goddess, this wild feminine energy really came up. Like that's where I started a kind of faith, a kind of religion, might I even say, of really starting to believe in this wild woman energy, feeling it in nature, feeling it inside of me, and kind of, really starting to have this giddy idea of magic, and renewing my hope, let's say. All right, the next one is The Ugly Duckling. So I think out of the list of tales in this book, this one might be the most known. But so the first card is your personal internal mother that triggers you into exile, because in The Ugly Duckling, first the mother kind of abandoned the ugly duckling. And then the strong mother, so the finding of independence. What did I wrote? I have no idea. But yeah, there's a strong mother where you become your own mother. You really become independent, because once again, this is all in the psyche. Then this is kind of more of an external factor, but so the bad companies, searching for the wrong friends, trying too hard to fit in a mold. And then the frozen feeling, which I don't know if some of you really get what this is, but I really understood it, like kind of feeling apathy, not feeling your feelings, like feeling so stuck that you really feel frozen in place. And then the passing stranger that helps you unfroze, and which may not be help from where you believed help would usually come. Then we go into the learning from the exile, so gaining sense over information. And then the longing, the surviving until the thriving with the arrival of spring. So this is really kind of like, okay, spring is now coming, new growth, etc. And finally, gaining perspective by looking at the past, being aware of the injury, and becoming the swan. If I'm not showing all the cards, it's really because they are ready for another spread. But so for the ugly duckling, so I have this feeling of not belonging in the world, and I hide myself to please others and expect better treatment because of it, which end up being disappointed. So basically, I think, and maybe if you resonate with that, let me know, but like that, maybe you are putting too much effort into being a certain persona that you are not, in order to maybe please someone else or please the world around you. But that because you're putting so much effort into it, you're expecting kind of a reward. And then when this reward doesn't come, it just makes you angry. It makes you disappointed. So that's kind of like the beginning of this spread. And this card is also this idea of being disappointed and kind of having this narcissistic, almost like vision that people never do enough for you. So basically the idea is that you're wearing the wrong camouflage, because this card is really the idea that you're, putting this mask on. So yeah, don't like this tarot, by the way, is very different from the Rider-Waite-Smith. It's almost an oracle when you look at the guidebook. So that's why, like, if you're like, what the fuck, this is not the message of the Three of Cups, like, don't be surprised. So the idea is to just be yourself. Okay, now I know which card is also missing. To kind of reassess your role as a provider. Use your intuition and to listen inward. So this is kind of like the final message of the Ugly Duckling, is really this idea that you need to stop with this persona that is more for others and to start focusing on yourself. So the Ugly Duckling, I think for me, in terms of how much I liked this chapter, it was a little bit like the Vasalisa. Kind of the big realization was in the chapter before, and this was more like this confirmation of it, with a lot of like those cards, like powerful cards like the High Priestess and the Queen of Cups that really just kept showing. So this idea of femininity, but like more the intuitive side, the true side, like not a lot about relationship with the world, but really kind of inward work. So moving on, we've got, okay, now we're getting to an interesting part. We've got the body chapter, where there is no proper tail. So the tails are like, you see kind of like shown in the book with this little symbol at the front. And this is not a tale. This is more like a story that the author, so Clarissa, went through. So something that she witnessed, let's say. And I'm not saying that that's not like an interesting story or anything. But like basically, until now, I was, like I said, treating this book like a Bible. But I got really disappointed in this chapter. The other chapters were really like kind of those more objective messages that weren't as much linked to Clarissa Estes' personal life. This one to me was all about her insecurities that she assumed were universal, that we were all having, that we were all seeing other people with this horrible judgment that I think is wrong. Like basically, so this story is about this old lady that dances naked, and she's saying that people expect to see a beautiful young woman, and that when they see instead this old woman, they are disappointed. But like, she's not letting us make our own opinion. She's just assuming that we are gonna see this old woman and find her ugly, where it was very wrong with my idea, because I've done a lot of dancing. I'm always happy to see people dancing, no matter what they look like. So she's kind of assuming in this chapter that we are very judging of others. And I really didn't like that part. I also think she's not careful enough, because the body doesn't only touch upon what's happening like inside your head, but it's also about your body and your physical health. And I think that you need to be a bit careful. Like I thought, okay, for this one, I can't take the advice that she's giving like as gospel, like I would have liked another chapter that would celebrate the body, but in a different way, where it's about celebrating maybe the life cycles that your body as a woman goes through. There's so many stages that goes through physically in your body that has nothing to do with how it looks, or how people may be, looking at you, that I think would have been way more powerful into making people love their body, but instead it was all about, oh, if people are not this certain type, then you find them ugly and you shouldn't. That was the message in this chapter. Anyway, after really thinking about the messages in this chapter and the parts that I disagreed with, where she was, like I said, really projecting her own insecurity into us, and not letting us have the benefit of the doubt into how we want to portray beauty, I made my own spread, which I'm going to show now. So to me, the important questions about your body is first, how can I better honor and serve my body? Then, how can I face society's judgment and my own on my body and the ones of others? What should I release mentally to be able to embody physically the wild woman? And what should I physically do to feel mentally the wild woman? So kind of a little wordplay here. And the lessons learned. The messages are: pay attention to how you physically feel. Be kind to yourself. Listen to the inner voice instead of the outside. Don't stay stuck in your own belief. And dance. I liked this nice little sentence because, so this is in the World Guidebook. There's like this message to dance, and I'm like, okay, I'll take it like literally, because for me dancing is really the way to feel better about yourself. But then this idea that I think really came up with the Justice card of and kind of the soothsayer, to really listen inwardly to what you feel physically, both like in terms of physical sensation that only stay physical, and that, for example, if you're hungry, then you eat. If you stop being hungry, you stop eating, like this kind of like listening to your body's messages. But also kind of further than that, if some body sensation might, show some other things that you actually feel mentally, those are also important to bring forth. So yeah, I'll leave it at that for this spread. So the next one is the red shoes. And I think I'm now going to switch up and always start by how those chapters made me feel. So I was still like struggling from kind of this betrayal almost that I felt from the body chapter, because of how disappointed I was and how much better it could have been. And then the red shoes was again like very brutal, because it was really talking about, like kind of temptation and being in a life, like, I don't know, cravings and things that are really hard to like bring forth, that you might like, kind of going back to the Bluebeard, that things you know but would wish you do not want to know, and so you sweep it under the carpet kind of thing. So I was really starting to get in my own head reading this chapter and feeling like I was never like doing everything wrong and all of that. So yeah, just like be careful of that, because like you said, you see like it's just trap, and then you're like, oh, where is like the truth of the matter? How do I behave correctly? Blah, blah, blah. So just be kind to yourself if you decide to read the book when you go through this chapter. And I think the next one as well kind of did the same. So the spread is the following. It's a big one, 9 cards. But the first one is the handmade red shoes that were lost. So kind of something that you used to be proud of, that you were really making with your own hands, that were making you thrive, and that you lost maybe when growing up, when becoming an adult. And kind of then this gilded cage that keeps, this gilded carriage that keeps you from going back to this kind of dream that was bringing you pride and happiness. Then the bad influence from the people around you or the collective. Then hambre del alma, this kind of internal famine and craving that comes up because you're missing this purpose that you've had, but you don't know how to get it back. Then fifth card, trying to sneak a secret life. So when you're kind of hiding this craving and this true nature instead of actually like showing it to the world, like rebelling and becoming who you really want to be. And then actually trying to become true and doing this rebellion, but being punished for it, which then enhance this whole craving, this whole famine, and kind of this descent to hell. Then, because of this punishment, trying to fake being good and kind of normalizing what is abnormal for you. And the result of that is to become feral, so becoming out of control, obsession, addiction, and things like that. And finally, the severance. So when you actually, this is the part where you cut the shoes off the feet entirely, you heal the injured instinct, and you return to a life that is more simple, made by hand, where you're not falling into the traps of the gilded carriage. So, for the red shoes, you are struggling to stay... it's upside down. You're struggling to stay out of chaos, be it created by different expectations, uncertainties, emotion. And so you chose to be in distractions. You try to fit in with people you do not belong with. You have split your personality between pleasing others and being yourself. You're trying to leave this chaos now. So find the give and take balance. And once again, seek community. So those are the messages. Basically, it's kind of funny because I did this like in reverse chronological order. So I started gathering like those kind of, little paragraph, one sentence messages of like the different spreads I've made from the very last tale to the first. And for me, this idea of seeking community and this card, the Five of Swords, like came up to me a lot. And I think that's kind of basically the purpose that I was missing, that I knew I wanted, but I was not actively seeking. And it came up as early as this red shoe spread that was kind of the main message. But at the time of doing this spread, I did not act on it yet. I was still fully like more trying to leave the chaos behind, to stop with the distractions, but without replacing the distractions with anything else. So that was not working super well for me. So the next one is Sealskin, Soulskin. So like I said, this one is also like kind of made my brain hurt, let's say, because it was really the spread about the separation between the ego, the soul, and then the consciousness or the spirit that brings both motivation together, and trying to figure out within your own psyche what belongs to ego, what belongs to the soul, and what you manifest within your consciousness is like super difficult. So yeah, this was not an easy one either. But so the card number 1 here is what does the ego want? Second card is what is the current state of my soul skin? How far from my soul path have I drifted? So the soul skin represents the soul. So if whether you really manifest in the world what your soul wants. And in the tail, basically, she loses her soul skin and she starts only doing things of the ego. And the point is to see how far from this soul path you have drifted. Third card is what is calling my spirit and would allow me to recover more of my soul skin. Once again, the spirit is a mix of ego and soul. It's kind of the child of both that is what you lead with in the world, with your consciousness. What would I find in the deep once I recover my soul skin? So that means if you go really deep inside yourself, that you look at your shadows, what it is that you would find that would help you to be more on your soul path. And finally, how does my spirit can better navigate between my ego and my soul? So, the ego wants order, wants rationality, but you're currently coming back to soul work. And so you need to start anew without expectations from your past. Go for your dreams. Allow your desires to lead, and be selfish was kind of the main message. Next, I'm sorry, I'm kind of rushing a little bit maybe because this is taking a while. We have the nourishing the creative life with La Llorona as the main tale, but then within here we also have the little match girl and the 3 gold hairs. So there was 3 tales in this chapter, and I've combined them in one spread, which is this one. So, what complexes or distraction pollutes my creative river? What goal is my animus seeking at this moment? How can I practice perseverance for my true goals? How can I avoid the fantasy mill and become the little match girl? So the little match girl is this little girl that is cold and is selling matches, and nobody buys matches for her. So she just decides, instead of buying wood and to create a fire, to actually just uses the matches one after the other. And when the matches are lit, she sees all those fantasies of a warm home and things like that, but then the matches stop and then she dies. So how can I avoid that? 5th, what external aspects are polluting my river? And finally, what is the best way for me to renew my creative fire, my animus? So once again, animus is kind of this masculine energy that is in action, right? That kind of consciousness again, this idea of the things that really are not in order of receiving or being receptive, but doing things. Doubts and indecisions from childhood are holding you back, and you're trying to overcome them. This is the overcome part. So being optimistic will help you to persevere, and focus on you instead of others, to not fall into fantasy. Go against expectations. Always seek the lesson behind the death, and let the child spirit be curious when the animus can't continue. So those are the messages. This spread, honestly, I think it did not leave a big impact on me. If I am to talk now about the chapter in itself. Yeah, I think it was kind of a little bit whatever, even though it's interesting, and I'm very interested about the idea of not falling completely over my my fantasies. And I like the idea of always seeking the lesson behind the death. Yeah, okay, now I think it was kind of an initiation to big revelations that came in the chapters that followed. So let's look into those. So then we've got a funny one. So it's this retrieving a sacred sexuality with the dirty goddesses. And this was all about, I wouldn't say sexuality in the way that we are imagining it, but more in terms of like belly laughing, like finding back playfulness, finding back hope through silliness, and things like that. The spread for this was first card, the belly goddess that helps me find perseverance and take me out of my slump. The joke she tells me that makes the belly laugh. And finally, the naughty secret to keep close and keep you laughing. So this was just like kind of something, you know, like a memory that you might have that still brings a smile to your lips, like a joke that you were told as a kid that really made you laugh like crazy. Like this is kind of the idea behind this chapter. And I really enjoyed reading it, even though I decided to do this spread, but I knew that it would be quite difficult. Wait, this is not the good one, the right one. It would be quite difficult to actually get a joke out of tarot, or at least not necessarily with this deck, but I tried my best. So we got the Soothsayer of Sleep again. Gosh, I just put them away and then I can't find them. Here it is. So, Bobo is telling you to not be so rational and to not always try to solve the situation. So, laugh at the arrogance of men and I think I've got that again. Form a tight cohort with your shadows. So these are kind of the cards that I've got. I think I got multiple cards for one position. That's why there's more than 3 in this one. So the next one is making territory, the boundaries of rage and forgiveness. I think this is the most interesting chapter of the whole book. It's really about the rage and the forgiveness. And maybe it was the most interesting for me because I think for the past 3 months, I've just been really angry. So this really came for me at the right time. And I've been also wondering a lot about something, which is how to not become bitter with getting older, because I think that happens to a lot of women. And this was in this chapter. It was like, there was actually something like this exact sentence, like women have to ask themselves at some point about bitterness or something like that. It was just really interesting. So the spread is, first card, the rage that you're feeling. Second card, kind of like the journey that you have to go through, like the work needed to face the illusion of your age, to see kind of what is the illusion that the rage has created. And the third card is then kind of the compassion bringer. So what kind of compassion would show itself once the illusion is gone. And then that was super interesting in this chapter, that once you have done those learnings of the illusion of your rage and kind of getting back to a compassionate state, you have to go back to normal. And this means that you have to practice the learnings again and again and again. That you're not going to be able to learn and then right away to apply them to your routine. Like you need to just keep working on them for a long time. But then the fifth card is really the right action. Understanding when to let rage burn bright. Like you can't just come back from having dealt with your rage and never become angry ever again. Sometimes there are moments where the rage needs to be is accurate, is validated, like needs to be burned bright. And this is kind of what this card represents. And then we've got the card about letting go of bitterness through descansos, which are those kind of like grief places. And basically the idea is to acknowledge in your past those roads that you could not have, like that you haven't taken, but where you feel maybe a bit of regret. Understand also those like parts of you that you have also left behind that you could have been but ended up not being. Like you need to grieve those different paths that you didn't follow, those different persons that you could have become, and to grieve them and made peace with them. And finally, at what stage of forgiveness am I? And there are 4 stages explained in the book. I'm not going to go into details on them because I don't have the time. And also read the book if you want to know. So, the messages in this spread is that the rage is that I'm feeling the hurt of the planet and it makes me enraged. I'm a person that is really concerned about climate change, and I think I've also been very angry at all the injustice that are happening in the world in general, and it makes me really, really angry. So that's what I kind of read into this card. But then in this card, it's really kind of remembering that within this world that I'm angry with, that where there's a lot of injustices, I have been lucky. I have thrived. So kind of already this idea of gratitude. So once again, to focus on community building and on gratitude. I need to know what I want, which now is clearly this, based on all the different spreads I've done, and to kind of know when some things are keeping me off that path, and that is when I should let rage come forth. And so I should not let fear and missed opportunities hold me back. And basically, I then got those 2 cards together about the forgiveness. And for me, they really gave me the message that forgiveness starts within the self. And the question is, have I forgiven myself? You need to forgive yourself first before you can forgive anybody else. So yeah, really like that chapter. I think it turned like a new leaf on my journey in this book and within this faith that I've created with the Wild Woman. The next spread is The Woman with Hair of Gold. And this is about traumas, about things that you might be ashamed of, that you are carrying with you and that you need to be able to deal with. So the spread is the following. First card is what shame, what secrets are you carrying? How do they manifest in your life? How could you release them and wear them? How could you release them and how could you wear them proudly in order to like remove their hold on your path forward? And for this one, it was funny because I read it and I was like, oh, I think I've been lucky. I don't have like big traumas compared to other women that I know and things like that. And then I do the spread and the devil card is also in this spread, but I'm lazy to find it. And then when the moon card showed up, like I got so many messages in this. So the message and the lesson that I get from this spread is that I'm still not embracing fully my femininity. I am hiding, which make me miss opportunities. I need to imitate to understand what is foreign and let the emotions erupt to the surface. The emotions that erupt to the surface are neither a stranger or a scapegoat. They are a part of you. So this is that, and we are reaching the final spread of this whole thing. And it's the one on the initiation in the underground forest with the tale of the handless maiden. And this is really about descending again and again until you find the wild woman inside of you. So the spread is the following. So the first stage, like the starting point is kind of this naivety and this bargain that you make with the devil without knowing what the bargain is. Because in the tale, it's the father that believes he's trading an apple tree for riches, where in fact he's trading his daughter, the maiden, for riches. So it's kind of like this predator again that right now is taking the shape of the devil that you make when you choose the path of facility, of ease, rather than your true path. And so the second stage is then the dismemberment. So when the maiden is losing her hands, which is the sacrifice of the woman's innocence that propels her into the underworld. And the third stage is then the wandering. So the old self is gone, and the deep self, the naked self, is the powerful wanderer that is protected by the wild spirit. So that now in this third stage, we are starting the initiation in the underworld. The fourth stage is finding love in the underworld. I'm going to take a little bit of water if you'll excuse me. So finding love in this underworld where we are kind of encountering our animus, so our will, our power of doing in the world, but this time like masculine energy that is helpful instead of the devil, which was this predator once again. Then the fifth stage is that once we find this masculine energy that is protecting us, that is helping us, that we should not kind of stay dormant or in this nurturing state, because that brings the devil back. And kind of the king is kind of fading away in a sense. And so we must say our goodbye, even to those internal forces that have helped us so far, in order to reach further into the underworld and into the soul-making realm. And so then the sixth stage is the realm of the wild woman, where the hands grow back, where you become this thriving wild woman. And the seventh stage is about the journey that your masculine part, or whether be it again inside your psyche or in the outside world, that they also must go through their own personal descent, their own personal development, in order for kind of the happy ever after. So the main message of those cards of this spread is to accept change, to let go of fear, which is found in those two cards, by cultivating purity of heart and peace. And these two cards, so the Knight of Cups and the Four of Swords, have been two cards that have been coming again and again in the past few days or few weeks. And this is about the purity of heart and then seeking peace in times of conflict. And then I've got the World card. So the lesson I got from this is to live in harmony with the world without forsaking yourself. So the World is a card that came up a lot for me this past month and a half working with this book. And like I said, sometimes it came up as this predator, as this thing that I was angry with. And I think the main learning I've got towards the end of reading the book and within my own personal journey is that you need to still live in harmony with the world. So you need to be able to deal with the things that are making you angry. And that's why it was useful for me to find out, okay, I need to still have a community, seek community. And for that, I will have to deal with the stereotypes that are put on women. The point is to keep in mind what is the true goal of your actions. And instead of seeing the injustices that may happen and thinking that the people around you are ungrateful or are taking into taking you for granted or taking your actions for granted, like that's on them. The point is to make sure that all of the actions you make in the world allow you to reach your true goal. And for me, that goal that came up within working with this book was really to build my community. And finally, with the final card and kind of what my king needed to go through, so kind of like this masculine energy and what kind of personal development they need to go through, the main message that came up is that you can show an example of how you thrive by bringing peace and being pure of heart and having compassion, having all this quality, being kind. But that you are not responsible for their behavior. You are not responsible for them to make this step. So they have to make it on their own. So yeah, that was all. That was the book. So honestly, without more, I don't have a voice anymore. This was very tiring. It was loaded with information. So I'm going to try to edit this down for it to be less than an hour. And I hope this was interesting to you and that you are willing to maybe try to do some of those spreads for yourself. I really recommend this book, but I guess my main final message is to not treat it as a Bible, to have a little bit of distance over its messages, and really to just treat it as a way to help you go back to your own sense of purpose. So yeah, thank you for watching and hopefully see you in my next video. I have some exciting things coming up, so stay tuned. Bye!